As gamers, first we could no longer believe traditional games media. And when the companies figured out that we no longer trust these corrupted sources of information, they started just spreading the lies themselves. And then we could not believe the companies that we loved and cherished for so long. And it's just only gotten worse from that point onward.
You know what? It's been a long time since games journalists have drew my ire, and in that time, especially past couple of weeks, these guys have me losing my mind. I've been distracted by all the games that are coming out. I can't hold my tongue any longer. I'm going to crash out over this. I've seen everything from flat out rewrites to history, completely ignoring verifiable facts, pressuring developers to change their games based on things that never even happened, bias.
This is exactly like the Pirates of the Caribbean scene where everyone's up on the gallows and the guy smiles and looks at the other guy and says, "First time." Like, come on. We have been living in exactly this described reality for how long, honestly, at this point?
Surveys using data to try to change our perspective on who actually plays games. These guys have been running the entire gambit. Now all of a sudden Ubisoft is one of the greatest developers of all time. The Hogwarts Legacy boycott was a success, and oh, by the way, 50%, more than 50% of players are actually women today, which
Absolutely based, okay?
doesn't make any sense to me because only 5% of the people subscribed to this channel are women, which is actually a pretty high number. It must be the hair. You know, one of the
5% for a gaming channel is unironically a lot.
reasons why there is so much distrust for the media is that I think that from a lot of people's perspective, games media is basically the exact same thing as legacy media in their eyes. It's just something that just does not represent the common person. It is constantly always pulling in a direction that is against the curve. It's against the grain of it's not what we want. As simple as that. And it's constantly misrepresenting our opinions, our concerns, and our complaints for the industry, all for their own gain. So today I want to talk about that distrust in games media, because regardless what other people think, I still think written media matters. So we're going to talk about the
written media matters, but they have done a tremendously amazing job at making everyone believe the exact opposite through non-stop lies.
stories that they've spun, the damage that's done, and if these guys don't start representing the players, they're not going to be representing anyone. But before that, a word from today's sponsor, Displayed.
Very cool.
We have witnessed a media apocalypse over the past couple of years. The death and resurrection of Game Informer, Polygon being gutted and sold off to Vox Media, Kotaku facing the exact same thing under GO.
You love to see it, don't you? Kotaku, Polygon, all of the worst places ever with the most lies and misinformation just gone. Just completely eviscerated by the fact that no one wants to believe them.
Media and IGN's parent company, Ziff Davis, consolidating the entire gamer network, Eurogamer, Rock, Paper, Shotgun, and more. It's been a bloodbath for written games media. The only bright spot has been SkillUp, launching his own publication through the support of his YouTube audience, a path that I would like to follow one day myself.
Wait. SkillUp is Charlie Sheen's a secret child? What the hell? I did not know that. Also, if SkillUp actually does this, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna believe anything that he writes.
Path that I would like to follow one day myself because I think it matters. We need journalists that are on the ground investigating the truth, exposing corruption, informing the people, and representing their voices. But that's just not what we're getting anymore. It's why so many of them are losing their relevance and their jobs. The ideals that I just listed to define journalism now sound almost naive when I say it out loud. Over the years, as a society, we have grown more polarized and politicized. The art of journalism has been twisted into something else, a mouthpiece for access, for industry narratives, for social agendas and political causes, everything except for the people that it's meant to represent. What finally sent me over the edge recently was the reaction to Ubisoft canceling an Assassin's Creed game that would have been set in post-Civil War America, where you would play as a former...
This would have been the most wokest, funniest thing ever. Honestly, I am also truly disappointed that this did not happen.
slave taking on the KKK. That is a killer premise for this franchise. The political turmoil of that era, the danger of trying to blend in when the whole world is watching you, the ways that the Templars could have been manipulating division for their own gain. It practically writes itself. Django Unchained, Assassin's Creed. Except for, of course, it wouldn't have been any of those things because it was...
Imagine Django Unchained, but extremely poorly written, completely boring, and just bad in general. That would, well, that's pretty much all the Assassin's Creed games of late, but that would be hilarious.
Ubisoft. Under any other publisher, this idea could totally work. It could have been bold, dark, powerful, witty, but not here. Somewhere along the way, all of a sudden, the Ubisoft part of this sentence just got stripped away entirely, like people are pretending like it doesn't matter who's actually making the game. You have people on social media and games media that are saying things like, this game would have been massive if it came out a bit after Django Unchained when people were scared and embarrassed to be white supremacists. We lost the greatest Assassin's Creed game ever. And these posts just kept going with tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of likes. Games media then jumped on the bandwagon with PC Gamer writing an article titled, Ubisoft reportedly canceled an Assassin's Creed game that was set in American Civil War because of Yasuke backlash and political turmoil in the US, where they would then write later in the article, it is, in other words, an intensely fraught topic in the US, a point driven home by the reaction to Yasuke in Assassin's Creed Shadows, which was ugly, to put it mildly. That reaction also exposed the soft underbelly of Ubisoft's leadership in response to the noise from the worst corners of gamerdom. CEO Yves Guillemot said in September 2024, our goal is not to push any specific agenda, and
I'm pretty sure everything Yves Guillemot says is lies at this point, and everything Ubisoft pushes in general is 100% just laced, purely laced with agenda at this point.
its intent is simply to make games for fans and players that everyone can enjoy. Ironically, the people who actually make those games seem less reticent about standing up for themselves and their work, but they're not the ones who make the final decision on what does and doesn't get made. The Gamer followed this up with an article titled, It's Unbelievable That Assassin's Creed Canceled Its Coolest Concept Ever, where they said that the game was canceled because of fake controversy around Assassin's Creed Shadows, later calling them cowards.
Honestly, did anyone want that? Like, if you're here watching this, then like the video right now and hype it up if you're on a mobile device. It greatly helps the channel. I appreciate it, and it takes less than a second, so thank you for everyone who does that. And if you think that these things are important, definitely like the video right now. Thank you for everyone. But I want to hear people say in the comments that they actually wanted a game like this, okay? It sounds like such an absolute modern-day failure. It's not even close, in my opinion. Like, you could do a decent game like that if you trusted the writers, but I mean, nowadays, whenever I hear the designation of, oh, I'm a games developer, I instantaneously think bad things because most game developers are just garbage.
As they claim that global politics are swinging hard to the right and they are taking the easy way out, then later, and unwittingly or purposefully, completely ignored a very important piece of context where they said, it shouldn't be controversial for games to unequivocally take a stand that the Ku Klux Klan is bad, slavery is bad, and pushing back against oppression is good. Red Dead Redemption 2, frequently hailed as one of the greatest games of all time, features many instances where you do exactly this. For that matter, it shouldn't have been controversial that Yasuke was put in a video game. Excuse me, but that's not the direction I thought this was going, and there is no equivalence between Red Dead Redemption 2 letting...
Excuse me, but that's not the reason why Yasuke was controversial. It was controversial because that's a blatant attempt at rewriting history of the Japanese people. Very simple.
You chase down the Klan, and Ubisoft shoehorning an obscure figure from Japanese history into the lead role of Assassin's Creed. That is a mile-wide leap, my friend, and it's insane how far people will go and how far they will stretch to rewrite history just to justify it or inflate the fame of the character. Forbes took it all further with their article titled An Assassin's Creed Civil War Game Was Canceled Because Yasuke Reaction US Politics, where they divine why the game was canceled, raising the status of Yasuke even further, writing, The lead up to the release of Assassin's Creed Shadows was overwhelmed by a culture war controversy that the game was using legendary historical black samurai Yasuke that sparked both endless debates about whether he really was
Legendary.
a samurai in history and general disdain for the idea that AC finally had a game set in Japan but was using a black man instead of a Japanese male lead. There was a second lead, a Japanese woman, who was largely ignored. Now, Yasuke isn't just historical, he's
That is absolutely hilarious. To lie this blatantly is a form of art at this point. Now, granted, very poorly done, but you gotta give it to them. Okay, honestly, you gotta give it to them that they are just lying this openly, this brazenly, and they literally don't care any longer that even most people are gonna instantaneously assume and know that these are lies.
legendary. Jeez, man. The framing of this is what drives me up the wall. Sure, yeah, there were extremists that were targeting the game and the developers for some of the worst reasons, but the vast majority of criticisms came from a place of sincerity and quality. People can tell when a character is being forced in to be able to play on political talking points for profit, tokenizing identities to be able to sell copies, and the end result is always the same: a soulless, shoehorn product that nobody wants, like Assassin's Creed Shadows. I mean, just look at that game. The intro to Yasuke is one of the
Remember when they called pattern recognition racist? True and real, okay? That's all I'm gonna say on that one.
strangest things that I've ever seen. Nobunaga looks the guy in the eyes and says, "You're going to change this country. You're a powerful man." That's it. That's the background of that character. It is just so awkward and so forced. And when you compare that to Nawe, the Japanese lead, who actually has a coherent backstory and a decent character arc, it's night and day. Because of Yasuke and the social discourse around him becoming a lightning rod, these writers just want to ignore any real context. Why wouldn't players want to play a post-Civil War game about a former slave made by Ubisoft? Players do not trust them to make a good game or do justice to a story like that. And honestly, these journalists don't either. They have been publishing pieces criticizing Ubisoft's design philosophy for nearly a decade. So how are you going to sit here and tell me that we're missing out on some great game from the company that has spent the past 10 years pulling out some of the worst open world stories, UI, and monetization schemes in the entire industry? It's like these guys are just completely ignoring who we're actually talking.
No, Grant, I don't honestly even know who would get the avowed for worst monetizations practiced in gaming. Would it be Blizzard with literally selling you $50 portal color skins in Diablo 4 or $100 mounts in World of Warcraft and Diablo 4? Or would it be any of these games with their literally zero absolute value battle passes and overpriced skins that don't even look good? Or who? I mean, all of these companies are absolutely, completely off the wall at this point when it comes to greed.
Talking about. And the funniest part is that Ubisoft's leadership can't even keep their story straight. PC Gamer can't either. They were just the ones that were quoting the CEO saying,
Well, to be fair, Ubisoft dislikes straight, so it does check out.
That our goal isn't to push any specific agenda. Yet just last year, in the response to the backlash over Assassin's Creed Shadows, they quoted Mark Alexis Cote, the now former boss of Assassin's Creed, giving a speech like, "As the authors of How Democracies Die so powerfully stated, democracies crumble when good people stay silent. The same is true, I think, of our creative vision when we allow fear to stifle our voices, when we self-censor in the face of threats, when we hand over our power piece by piece until freedom and creativity wither away. We cannot let that happen. It's time."
The most vaguest, dumbest thing that anyone could honestly ever say. Like, this is so self-grandizing, you really feel it.
For us creators to stand firm in the commitment to our values by telling stories that inspire, that challenge, and help people to connect. Our silence.
I'm pretty sure none of these stories actually inspire, challenge, or help anything. They're lame, they're dull, and they're unappealing. They're boring. That's what they are. They somehow always do the exact opposite of what they say that they honestly want to do. And that's the problem with the woke ideology, obviously. It's the fact that woke can't have heroes. Because being a hero is bad, because that objectively makes you a better person than others. And that's impossible. The concept of heroes or people that are good and stand out is just anathema to the whole concept that these people want to represent.
Cannot become complicit, said the guy who quit the company just after they sold Assassin's Creed to China. Whatever happened to not backing down there, Marky boy? This is all just pure performative altruism, trying to frame corporate content decisions as some grand act of moral courage, and it's painfully two-faced. Ubisoft doesn't even believe in the things that they're claiming to stand for, and that's why their stories suck in the first place. This is a company that has spent the last decade silencing its own employees through workplace abuse, cover-ups, and mass layoffs, but suddenly, when there's a PR angle to exploit, they're the guardians of democracy. So when I hear all this outrage over a canceled Assassin's Creed game, it's all just virtue signaling that ignores the most important context of all. Ubisoft would have been the one that's making it. How are people pretending like Ubisoft still makes good games? The irony here is wild. The Gamer article literally mentions Red Dead Redemption 2 as proof that this idea
Ubisoft need to get back on the concept of making games in the first place, not virtue signals. And then they can start thinking about, can they even make them good in the first place? To make a good game, you need to make a game in the first place. And Ubisoft clearly kind of fails at that.
It could work, as if that comparison makes any sense at all. Yeah, that game pulled it off because it was Rockstar. There is a massive difference there. That's like saying this 5-star Italian restaurant made the best spaghetti that I've ever had, so why shouldn't Taco Bell make it too? It feels like I'm just living in an alternate reality, like everybody collectively forgot that
Well, Taco Bell no longer makes tacos, so, it's kind of a little bit hard.
Ubisoft has lost over 90% of its market value, circling the drain, barely hanging on to its place in the stock exchange. In its current state, this is a company that under no circumstances could ever do any justice to a game like this. Yet we have people that are parading it around like we are missing out on the greatest game ever because of online racism, instead of the company that's so bad that it's lost 90% of its value and had to sell out to China. What are we talking about here? This is exactly what is driving players and readers away. It's the straw manning. It's the complete lack of awareness. It's just the rewrite.
Overall, I would just say the biggest problem is probably the fact that they think they're really smart and they think that we're really stupid. That they can do all of these above water stupid ideas and they think they're smart and no one's gonna know this. No one's gonna figure out that they actually hate or dislike something. And that's probably the most obnoxious thing about all of this. It's the fact when someone thinks that they're really, really smart and they're doing something amazing, and no one's ever gonna know this, but everyone's just like looking. Does he really think that no one's gonna figure this out? Is no one gonna be able to? Do they really think that everyone's this stupid? Yes, they actually do think everyone's this stupid. That's the problem.
Hiding and ignoring the truth. Why are people so mad at Ubisoft? I don't know. Maybe it's because their games suck. That's where 90% of this stuff is coming from right now. How could Red Dead Redemption 2 do it? Because it's one of the greatest games of all time. It's a thoroughbred experience. It's a game of a lifetime for a lot of people. It's a game that came out and its only sole purpose was just to be the greatest game it possibly could be, and that's just not what Ubisoft is known for. I don't think they've ever been known for that. It is so unreasonable to frame it like this and completely ignore the context of how bad this company is and how long that they've been this bad. And that frustrates me. That frustrates a lot of other players. And it makes us feel unheard, ignored, and more than anything, it feels like people are being labeled as people who do not like a character because of their skin color, when that couldn't be any further from the truth. This is one-sided representation. It is surface level, and above all, it's offensive. And I don't understand how these guys haven't figured it out yet. It's embarrassing is what it is. Another thing that I think really frustrates players is that these kind of narratives, once they get spun up and they all start talking about it, especially because a lot of these guys agree with one another, they become a monolith. They blot out and rewrite what players are actually concerned with, and then as a result, we're either ignored or painted as villains, and the games that come out aren't the games that we're looking for. As a result, these companies lose money, these developers lose their jobs, and these guys, they just keep doing it. What the industry hasn't accepted, and I think some of them are starting to, is that while journalists and reviewers can offer useful insight, their tastes, their opinions, and their values often do not line up with actual players. Building your entire product around their feedback doesn't broaden your audience, it shrinks it. You're not selling to journalists, you're selling to players. Just look at Dragon Age the Veilguard. That game scored a strong 80, praised as a return to form by critics, but it still
Oh man, the classic return to form. Oh, every journo got paid probably to say that. Return to form.
missed its sales targets by 50% and ended up with layoffs at BioWare. I think
Missing target the sales target by 50%, by the way, is a lie. That would imply that their sales target was 3 million. That's, by the way, if I remember correctly, what they actually said, because I just based off my calculations. And well, it's a lie. Veilguard was most likely aimed as, well, pretty much every AAA game to sell at the bare minimum 8 million copies, so they have a chance to break even in the first year. That's most likely what they actually were planning and wanted to sell. All these AAA companies that are saying, "Oh, we're only planning to get 2 million, 3 million sales," they're lying. They're obviously lying, because if you only needed 2 million sales as a AAA developer to break even, make enough money, and make another game, we would never have any firings in the industry in the first place, because bills cannot be paid. Because every game every AAA game can muster 3 million sales in like 2 years, including in-game microtransactions. It's just a lie. It's just a lie. They all lie about their budgets. That's how it is, because there is no negative side to lying about your budget of a game if you're a AAA developer. It's not illegal some magically how.
that's the real danger of this divide. When critics and writers start thinking that their perspectives represent the audiences, their words stop reflecting reality and start shaping it instead. You can see it in the way that these articles keep getting published, where outrage or controversy just gets recycled long after the audience has moved on. The Gamer recently ran a piece titled "Hogwarts Legacy 2 Can't Sidestep the Franchise's Biggest Controversy," where in it, they talk about how the sequel needs to change due to an online boycott against J.K. Rowling, saying, "Unfortunately, Hogwarts Legacy was unable to unmuddy the name of the Harry Potter franchise. While the game may have been met with positive..."
Held literally 22 million copies in its first year. 22 million copies in its first year. Whatever they did, objectively, was perfectly right.
Player and critic response, it also was the subject of boycotts upon release. Avalanche Software and Warner Brothers Games tried to placate.
Oh no, the 5 people who boycotted this. But it was funny when this happened. Remember how many big streamers were afraid to say it because they were afraid of their audience's backlash? Yeah, that was a real thing. In any case, games media is not going to change anytime soon. That was Legendary Drops, 10 out of 10. Bye!